Hello again, everyone. This was a bit of a tougher one just because, I think after Azumarill came out, maybe a few people were playing it in the days to follow, but not as many. So, when the Pokemon is not, super OP or something, I think a lot of people aren't going to try it out, or if it's just kind of average, and I think that's what Azumarill would qualify for, right, is just about average. I know I myself, I don't think it's awful, but certainly not in the powerhouse category. Although, speaking of powerhouse, it does have the ability Huge Power, and so here, while we're just focusing, we're only going to be looking at one of this would be a top player as deemed by, of course, the game's ranking, spectator mode, and because I couldn't find anybody that, I knew, we didn't see those super top ranking players, from the top 5 teams playing Azumarill. So anyway, with that in mind, you do have the Huge Power, that's your passive, so this means you're always going to be dealing critical hits. Now, one thing about this player, this is CSC Rush, I'm not particularly familiar with this player beforehand. They did have a Decidueye on the team, and I don't believe that this squad of people are on any comms or anything, so clearly probably not on a Discord call. And so with the Decidueye on their team, that Decidueye went to the central area, and really that jungle positioning could actually be okay for Azumarill. It's kind of set up, you have to think basically, here, this will crystallize it all, right, is that because all of your hits are going to be critical damage if they are a single target, you want to try to obviously hit single targets as much as possible. So that would be the obvious, of course. But with that, it kind of lends itself to being in that central area where a lot of your wild Pokemon, they're not going to be clumped up like these bees or anything, or maybe the 2 Apom together in the beginning. And so you're going to see, obviously, our CSC Rush player will not get those crits, at least not on the bees, but this is looking okay, actually, for this Blissey right here, doing a lot of damage. And so that's it, right? You do all this damage, especially to these fleeing enemies. Maybe in the beginning, this is, set up pretty nicely for Azumarill in this case. And so, just secure the wild Pokemon really very much in the early game. Who doesn't do that, right? But especially when you're still early on and you have that tackle attack, you may actually want to use that as kind of a last hit. This all just depends on what path you're in, as far as being able to hit a single target or not. But I kind of think of Azumarill, at least from my experience, what I've observed and what I've played and what I've learned, right, is that there's 2 types of opponents as far as player-controlled Pokemon, for instance, like these. 2 types that are really good targets, I would say, for your Azumarill. One is if they're overextending, right, so if they're way ahead of the pack. But then 2, the other type would be essentially like a Decidueye or someone who's trying to hang out back. Maybe you could, if you could just sneak by the opposing squad, you'd have to get back behind them. And it's because these are single targets, maybe a little bit squishier, like attackers or things like that. And then I would say, as far as just all this goes with this talk of single target hitting and really focusing in on that, it would be as best as you can to try not to fight around wild Pokemon or getting caught in the big team fights and stuff in the middle of the team fight, because that's the obvious, right? So it's if you're in that middle of that team fight and that clash, then you're going to be hitting multiple targets and not taking advantage of that passive ability that it's got. So we've got the next bees that was at 720. Keep in mind, of course, spectator mode, you saw a little bit earlier what the moves were, but we have no way to see what the items actually are on the people that we spectate. I don't know why they don't add the admin's tourney mode, how you can see the items then. They should just have this as a native feature in spectator mode. But as far as Azumarill goes, we can show what the game recommends and what some of the top Masters players use. I know that you could be benefited by a lot of the typical items that we mentioned on this series. Of course, notice our CSC Rush, I did just want to talk about actually making good work of these 2 Pokemon right here on the orange squad. Doesn't seem to be securing that KO against the Blissey, and that would have been an uphill battle, so, it might have been the right choice. Although, notice there actually, this was kind of a good strategy, maybe one that you don't even think of normally, but you would water pulse, use the roll to get in front of, in this case it would be the Blissey, but in front of your opponent, and then you can Aqua Tail it up. So that was a good combo to use, and then securing that KO, this was nice. And then you're gonna see it, the Unite move, that is called the Belly Bash. So making quick work of the Decidueye twice, but also then that Blissey, and we're gonna go ahead and score in right here. This is looking good. I don't know if this person maybe has attack weight if they would choose to go with those 1 points only and not just collect them all, get 2 points or 3 points and then collect them and then drop in. We're actually looking at a bit of a danger, but you can use that water pulse once again with that roll. You can actually roll out. They are going to test the limits, I think. They could have certainly tried to do more to escape that at least. But if we go back to the items right here while they're respawning, what I was mentioning about some of the typical items is of course, Buddy Barrier is great. Of course, some of the bands, if you think of Focus Band, Muscle Band, are great. It's just then you have to think about what type of build you're going. Are you pretty much playing offensively with that attack weight, let's say? That could be viable. And I think there's even, it will have appeared on screen already because I'll show you guys, but I think even the game said weakness policy. I've seen a website or 2 saying weakness policy. I don't know about that. It probably would have a time and a place. Maybe somebody who likes maybe the more unconventional type of build, I guess. I don't know. But at least go with the bands or certainly the Buddy Barrier. And so when we think about Aqua Tail, when we think about this moveset, you know, obviously, as we can see right here, the player that we're focusing on, that's CSC Rush, they've gone with Water Pulse and Aqua Tail. And so Aqua Tail, actually, it's going to increase the speed and that area of effect of your next 3 basic attacks. And so once you use it, you know, those next 3, that's where you're going to wail on them. Notice, just getting completely squad handled. That was all 5 of Orange Squad, who basically, they haven't scored in very much at all. And so this has been a stomp up until this point. Notice they are going to get a lot of those points, though, and completely break that top goal, that first one, and then make the assault there on the bottom one. So I can switch to that now. I was kind of caught up in my own thing. There's the belly bash. So that, once again, let's see if they can stave off this entire squad. Luckily, getting some help right now from Alolan Ninetales. One thing we can say for certain, maybe before describing all the moves, at least these 2 movesets from Azumarill, maybe gonna lose their life right here. Yes, that will be the Knock Knock, gonna take them down. And then we get a Knock Knock for purple. Love seeing Decidueye come back into relevance, everybody. So when you think about Aqua Tail, we already mentioned how the basic attacks go faster, increased AoE. They're gonna deal increased damage. If you do those basic attacks, if you connect from a distance with them, they're gonna deal increased damage, they're gonna restore your HP, and they actually will ignore the defense stat and the shield effects of any opponent that they're gonna hit. That mostly covers it for Aqua Tail for our purposes here. Water Pulse was the other one that we see this, of course, player using. That's gonna have Azumarill. It shoots out the blast of water in front of itself, but then when that hits an opponent, it's gonna decrease their move speed. It'll deal damage. It has like a small area of effect, but it's gonna automatically bounce then to another target if one is available. And so it's sort of this interesting dynamic of you want to be hitting your single targets, of course, but like in this case, you can kind of hit a group, and when it bounces, it can bounce between up to 3 targets. Each hit will do essentially the same things as the first hit. And of course, it comes with the rolling dash, you know, so if you push a direction as you're using the move, you can roll. And so it's proven already to be an interesting mechanic. Look at this, another belly bash. It has a cooldown of 88 seconds. We're seeing a little bit of trouble after taking down that Duraludon. Pikachu right here for Orange Squad they wanted to get the punishment in, but it's actually not looking so good for the Pika now, I would say. There you go, you see the Water Pulse bouncing. But yeah, that belly bash, you know, you pound your belly 3 times, you get a shield. You're gonna lose some of your HP actually in exchange for increased attack. And then Azumarill, you can target an opposing Pokemon, fling yourself at them, deal damage, and you throw anybody else that's in the way. It's all good, man. It's been kind of devastating so far, and so we're gonna have to see how this final stretch plays out for this team. I think we've covered most of our just like general talking points for Azumarill. Any Azumarill players, one thing to note about this one in particular, though, is that, you know, it was possibly a little bit more evident that they are not on a Discord call or anything. They're not 5 stacked up, because this player in particular hasn't done all of those kind of macro moves that would be really helpful for the squad. I feel like they have been playing a little bit more individualistic, and, you know, for instance, they could have rotated for Dread on each one of the Dreads, I guess. There is a Rings Unbound right there from Orange. Orange Squad just not looking so good, and so it might actually be one of those cases where, yeah, we're not seeing that picture-perfect top 5 play or anything like that, but because also the Orange Squad may not be on the same level, let's say, as these other players, you know, it's making this a little bit easier, I think, for our Azumarill when they don't rotate with the squad, for example. So when they're playing a little bit more like an individual, it's not damaging the team as much as it normally would. And so here's the Zapdos getting down underneath 75%. This is going to bring it down closer now. We're very close, actually looking at a steal, but no, Electro Ball is not going to get that final hit, so it does go to the purple squad. This Azumarill's done okay, and I think that a lot of people could justify, of course, Play Rough. Play Rough would be the move that takes the place of Water Pulse, your level 7 move, and then that kind of makes you wonder which one would be better, Play Rough with Aqua Tail or Play Rough with Whirlpool, maybe. Maybe that's the good news about Azumarill. I don't believe, perhaps more time needs to go by, but I don't believe that one moveset is especially going to be the clear choice, right? Sometimes it's just like super clearly obvious. At least in this case, it's just only maybe slightly favoring one moveset over another instead of just majorly. So Orange Squad actually kind of closing the gap a little bit more than I thought they would, but I don't know if they're going to be able to take this just with how they've been playing so far. You know, you got 466 to 353. That's a bit too much ground to make up if they are going to play this way, and you can see obviously losing 4 of their members right now, not even going to come back in time. So yeah, this is this is any of those cliches. Stick a fork in them, they're done. It ain't over till it's over, all that stuff. So there we go. Like I say, you know, I wanted to focus on just an amazing Azumarill, but there's not a whole lot of candidates when I'm online, at least, and I've been trying to be online a little bit more these past few days, although I did bust my head open. You guys know about that. I've been trying to look for Azumarill, and that's why this one was on mobile. Actually, I was just kind of trying to rest. I was trying to just lay down, whether it was on the couch or in bed or something, but have my iPad up there so we could still get some work done here on this and record. Normally we're on Switch, but yeah, I mean, this score really exemplifies things. The battle data, all of that paints a clear picture for you for how the match went. Hopefully they make some tweaks tweaks to Azumarill in the future on the dev side. Click an end screen to see another one, and thanks for viewing.